Tell me why you've imported them, why you've allowed them into our borders. There must be a justifiable reason for it, surely. There must be a reason why these people are here. Nobody looks at Britain and thinks of Sudanese migrants running about. Nobody looks at Britain and thinks about Sikh foreigners running about. Nobody looks at Britain and thinks of Africans on trains running about with knives. Nobody looks at Britain and thinks about Islamic gangs roaming the streets. But that's what Britain has turned into. When you look at Britain, you think about the white population that birthed the Industrial Revolution. When you look at Britain, you think about the British Empire that birthed a quarter of the entire globe and civilized the world. When you look at Britain, you think about the monarchy. You think about King Edward. You think about King Arthur. You think about the greats like Shakespeare. You don't think about Muhammad. You don't think about Khan. You don't think about Digwa. You think about those that made Britain. So why does Britain not represent the British people anymore? Why is that acceptable? Why do we every single week have to read a story about that? You wonder why the white British are leaving this country in droves. You wonder why people don't want to have kids in this country anymore. Look at the environment around them. It's pure savagery. It's pure violence. It's pure anti-white hatred. It's pure genocide. It is a genocide. It's a genocide against us. It's a genocide against our race. It's a genocide against our future. It's the preservation of these foreigners. It's a preservation of the third world. They are rewarded for doing this. Make no mistake of that. They are rewarded for doing this. And what's more shocking, if you watch that video from last night, number one, there were people sat in the back just screaming, whilst this African was on top of this poor man, shouting in a foreign language. Whilst he was doing that, there were people in the background shouting, "Get off him." You think this animal's going to get off him? Where the fuck are the Englishmen? Where are the Englishmen to remove this animal off of him? Why? And I'll tell you this, in Northern Ireland, their police have guns. Their police have guns. Where on earth was the shot? Where was the shot? Why did the police not shoot this fucking animal? Why would you just arrest him and shove him back into our system? We know how it plays out. They play the mental health card every single time. This man will just be deported and then he will come straight back. We already know that that's what he did. We already know that he's from Sudan. We already know that he went to Paris and then flew over to Dublin and then travelled to Dublin, from Dublin to Belfast, and in 2023 was given 5 years of indefinite leave to remain. That was facts that came out today. We're aware of this. So he has a right to stay in this country for an extra 2 years. He has a right to be here. What fucking right does he have to be here? Tell me. What branch gives him a right to be here? What piece of legislation gives him a right to be here? Who gave him a visa? Whatever branch gave him the right to be here, whatever piece of legislation gave him the right to be here, whoever gave him a visa, the branch should be burnt down, the legislation should be ripped apart, and the person that gave him a visa should be imprisoned for treason. And that's the light punishment for treason, by the way. There should be no remorse with these things. If we have a system which allows our own people to be beheaded on the street, that system needs to be burnt to the ground. That system should not exist. That system should not be the dominant thing that looks after the British people, because clearly it's not doing its role properly. What right did this savage have to be here? And why do we have to accept it? Why do we have to say this is fine? Why do we have politicians coming out and telling us to be calm about their failures? Why do we have politicians coming out and blaming the far right? Saying it's the far right. The far right didn't import this man. You fucking traitors did. You allowed him into our borders. You allowed the rape gangs into our borders. You allowed Lee Rigby's killer into our borders. You allowed these thousands of Pakistani men that raped little British girls into our borders. You allowed the arena bomber into our borders. You allowed Axel Rabudabakana's family into our borders. That wasn't the far right. The far right would never have allowed these people into our borders. The far right would have prevented these people from being in our borders. You can slam the far right. You can slam people like me. You can slam us all and say we are stoking the flames of division. I'll tell you what stokes the flames of division. These fucking animals do that. You do that. Your immigration policy does that. Your demographic replacement does that. The rape gangs do that. The murders do that. The beheadings do that. That is what starts the division.